We live today, and you work today, in a half real, half virtual world. We have this experience in the virtual world of a loss of ease, a loss of comfort, a loss of context. How old you are determines how comfortable you are with the technology. If you have teenage kids where they're all texting each other and you know, just talk to me, I'm right here, and they'd prefer to text because they're more comfortable with that. But the reason for that really is that text as a broadcast, virtual relationships degrade over time. If you don't do something face-to-face at some point, because you are constantly being denied information, your mind are making up negative interpretations. Over time, it just gradually whittles away at the trust and the connection that you have. In the virtual world, we tend to substitute, because it's hard to know whether to trust somebody in the virtual world or not. We tend to substitute something, and it's consistency. As a human, you're wired to want lots of information, and you're not getting that in the virtual world in the same way. And so that lack of feedback causes you to be anxious, more anxious than you otherwise would be. That behavior is starting to bleed back into the real world. We're getting nastier, and it's because of virtual communication. And if that's the case, if I'm right about that, it's a very disturbing trend, because this is not going to change. We're not suddenly going to go back to a face-to-face world and all get friendly again. And so we need to do something about this. We're all unwitting participants in this massive social experiment. There's a straight line relationship between the use of mobile phones and the likelihood of being depressed. The more you use it, the more depression goes up, and it's a straight line relationship. Face-to-face communications is messy. You have to look the other person in the eye, and you have to react to how they react, and you can hurt their feelings. If you're texting, you don't know any of that stuff. So that's the sort of vicious flip side of that. It's very hard to critique people effectively in virtual ways because they're going to take it in a much more negative sense. It can be done, but you need to work hard to soften the blow. Punctuation matters a huge amount. I was brought up as a writer to use exclamation points only sparingly. Now I use them constantly, and I'm really ashamed of myself for doing it. It suggests that you're being friendly in some way. I think you need to learn to use emojis. So imagine that 2-word email that you sent, nice job, and imagine the chance that it could be read sarcastically. If you put a smiley face at the end of it, then they'll know you meant it in a nice way. So the advantage of emojis, they're crude, they're simple, but they do convey friendly emotions. How many of you have regular audio conferences as part of your work? How many of you, at some point during that audio conference, put your phone on mute and do something else? Why does everybody report that audio conferences are difficult? Surprisingly, perhaps, we humans start to lack empathy because we don't know how the other person is feeling, so we assume they're jerks. Ultimately, we need to learn a new language, and that language is the language of human intent. We get deeply anxious. Online, it's much harder to know what other people's intent is. The virtual world is taking it out. We're not changing. We're stuck with the virtual world, but we humans aren't hardwired to be able to communicate well in it. We need to learn a new language.